All right, everybody. We have here a content creator that I recently came by just scrolling through my YouTube feed, and his title caught me. His title caught me. It's "Why Playing Alts is Hurting My Fun in World of Warcraft." Now, we all know that you all like to have many different classes, try different specs, different races, things like that. So when I saw this, I wanted to see what it was he was talking about. It's a video by Deployable Lover, and apparently this is rubbing him the wrong way, so let's give this a go.
I don't know what it is about Warcraft, whether it's just that there is an unholy amount of classes available to you, maybe more so in retail than there is classic, but because you have this overarching variety available in front of you, my brain, whether it's just the inner ADHD, I'm not sure, but my brain's just like, okay, well, this is cool. We've kind of enjoyed playing this now, but oh, look, we've just seen another class with a different ability that we've not seen before. Perhaps you should re-roll. Maybe you've seen a mage cast portals, you've seen a warlock summon, all of these different things that you can look at, and it's not even just spell related.
That is very true. That is very true. Anytime you go in and you've picked your character, you've been running your character, and then you finally get into a dungeon and you see an ungodly character just doing great damage, doing things that the group needs, and all of a sudden you're like, that is really cool. That is really neat. So I think I'm going to try that. I am going to try that. So then you turn around and you start another character like the one that you saw, hoping to catch that same feeling.
This could be anything to do with seeing cosmetics for the first time. For example, if I'm playing a mage and I'm using cloth, if I see a warrior wearing plate, my brain's instantly like, yeah, I think I'd look quite cool wearing that. And it's just this endless cycle of like, okay, well, we've got to a point where we're fairly happy now. Let's just re-roll and try something different. And if I'm being completely honest, it's something that I'm really, really trying to work on in Classic. And if you're anything like me and you are kind of hitting that point where your brain is constantly taking over and thinking, right, well, I just want to try something different, I would urge you to do what I've done over the last couple of months, and that is just try and stick to one character, because I promise you that the void that you're trying to fill by changing to all of these different characters and trying out all of these different classes, which of course you own rights to do that, you pay for a membership, but it won't satiate you the way that you feel it will. For me personally, there is something far more enjoyable that I've come to realize about picking a class and almost, I wouldn't say mastering the class, because I've not played the game for years, but certainly feeling like I belong in a certain role and just becoming accustomed to the buttons that I'm pressing, the abilities that I'm using, the spells that I'm wielding, and just feeling like, I guess what I've tried to do is personify myself into my character.
That's one of the things that I've done this season, and a lot of the seasons, quite honestly. I'm not like, I'll have my alts, but I always am favorable towards one character that I'm maining for the season, and I don't change. Like, I used to be a Havoc Demon Hunter, and then they did something that I just couldn't fathom anymore to keep playing that, and so I went from Havoc and I went to Ret. So, but for the most part, this season alone, I am maining one character only. So I don't have a lot of other content to do. I do a lot of, for instance, with the community on stream, I do a lot of Mythic Plus dungeons. And then basically whenever my guild, I'll do an alt run, I'll bring in, one of the characters that I've leveled up to 80, but it's not a character that I'm going to really try to master unless, and that is just the point that I'm trying to make, unless. You never know what's going to come down, because once you think you have your class and Blizzard does something to make your class less enjoyable, well, then you have to make the hard choice. Am I going to stay with this class? And that's really the part where you try to weather the storm like I did with Havoc, and it was too big a burden to bear for me.
the more that I told myself that I was just playing a class, the worse that it got for me, because a class is a very throwaway term. In these worlds, we live, we breathe, we put, I guess, digital versions of ourselves in the game. So what I had to train my brain to treat it like that, to not just treat this as another class, but as a character, my character, someone that I am going to go out and explore Azeroth with. Now, changing up your characters is
Now, you know, have you guys made a backstory for your character? Like, have you tried to come up with a lore for your character? Because I think that would be something that would make all of us a little bit more attached to that one character. Now, there's not a lot of people like that. And, you know, like he said, I don't pay your sub. You're free to do what you want. But falling in love with your character and taking that piece of identity, I think there's something to that.
Isn't so much of a big deal in retail, because the pacing there is a lot faster. They often have EXP events and you can kind of catch up a lot quicker, although it is still an issue. But where it really impacted me was Classic WoW. In Classic, everything is so much slower and so much harder earned. So for me to get to level 30, for example, on a druid that I've been running, to get to level 30 and then hit a wall of just, well, I kind of don't want to play this class anymore, I kind of want to play someone else, is so saddening. And if you're anyone that has experienced this sort of thing, you'll know that it's just a feeling that you just can't replicate. You can't put it off. Trying to push past that barrier is so hard. But I will tell you this, recently I've gone back to my druid. This is the character that on Classic that I left at level 30, and me and my brother have been running a lot of content in Classic WoW together, and he plays a warrior, and originally I was on a mage because I again re-rolled to a mage. And I said to him, look, I want us to form like a dynamic. I want to have a dedicated role alongside you for my character that I am just comfortable in, that we can run content with. And the druid, of course, can fit into its restoration form, which is something I've never done before.
I love druid, but I'm not very good at it.
I've never really healed in video games at all, and that's a topic for another video. But that particular role, identifying what I want to do in the game and what I want my character identity to be, has really helped me. And to be honest with you, I've now seen,
believe it or not, but when I was in Classic, I used to be in a guild called the Grateful Dead. And what I would do is I would write stories while I was at work, and I would post them on our guild webpage. Like, there used to actually be a lot of guild web pages when the game first came out. It was like a way to connect. This, of course, was just something that was unheard of, because YouTube, I don't believe YouTube, and I don't believe Facebook was around. So it was a way for us to interact. So I would write these stories about how it was for us just to get into Molten Core so that we could get in there, and I would put, you know, people from the raid into the stories and how their interactions would be while we're fighting. It was really fun. I enjoyed the writing process, and I enjoyed to see the comments on what they thought it was all about. But it was one of those things where I just got attached. Same thing with Star Wars Galaxies. I had my Andros, and Andros was my guy that, you know, through thick and thin, to get to unlock my Jedi, he and I went through this journey across the universe. It was just, I enjoy those kind of things. That's story to me, in a way.
Seen more content in both retail and Classic than I ever have done before. If we talk about retail for a second, I have been playing a Ret Paladin as alongside basically 99% of the population, and I got to level 80, and when you get to level 80, you're about, I think it's about 530, 540 item level. And at that point, normally I would be like, cool, all right, I'm level 80 now, I'm just going to swap to another class and level that up. But I thought to myself, no, I'm going to do my weeklies, I'm going to fill my vault, I'm going to do my raids, my heroic dungeons.
Yeah, the first thing that the first time that I've done this in a long time, I've actually leveled up enchanting and blacksmithing. I haven't done very much of professions when I came back to the game. Like, I don't think I ever hit 100 on anything besides fishing. Not even cooking. So I leveled up, so far I've leveled up my cooking all the way, my enchanting, and my blacksmithing. Now the specializations, I'm still working on all those points, but I am very diligent on all of that. I'm sticking to it. Discipline, commitment.
and I'm going to try and see if I can gear myself up for Mythic and really push past it. Now, whilst, if I'm being honest, a lot of the content, it seems, in the War Within seems very kind of weekly rotation focused, collecting a lot of currencies, which can kind of like...
But that's the way that it's been all the time. That is the way it's been all the time. And then later on, I'm going to do a video with about 11 rants that we have. That's by Dratnos. It's going to be a longer form video if you want to check it out. Just look for it. Have your notifications on, subscribe, things like that. So you get to see, the bell, which I don't even see the bell on this YouTube thing. Anyways, check it out. But let's continue.
I guess mixing the boredom a little bit. But it did allow me to understand my class a lot more. The utility that my class brings. The Ret Paladin isn't really great for heals. It is directly a damage dealer, but being able to know which buttons to press at which time, which heals you can give out, whether it's a lay on hands or whether just a cheap throwaway.
I've been trying to learn more and more about the utility while I'm running my Mythic Plus dungeons. Putting sacrifice, lay on hands, throwing a word of glory on somebody. I've been trying, so that's kind of like my next goal, is to be really good at being able to help my party recognize. So I moved my party frames, for instance, that used to be under my character, now to the side of my character, so I can see what their health is like, what they're encountering, as well as myself.
Heal and being able to resurrect certain members of your party, knowing which utilities you can bring to a certain situation, it gave me a higher understanding of that class as a whole. Before I knew it, I found myself pushing into harder and harder content, harder and harder delves, and just having an easier time. I was no longer really looking at my abilities other than kind of what's on cooldown, and everything just felt really free flowing. And before you knew it, I was doing content in the game that I had never done before, whether it was the Undermine raids, whether it was heroic dungeons that I really never ran before, raids in general, like I said, higher tier delves I'd never really explored, and some of the world bosses, like for example, we were taking on the Godfather in Undermine. That sort of thing I never really would have got into if I hadn't have just stuck with that class. If I'd have just got to level 80 on the War Within, which you can do halfway through the campaign, the leveling is an absolute breeze, I would have just passed it off.
And that's what I did. You can, if you're doing all of the side quests along with the main story quest, you could get through to level 80 very quickly, and that's what I did. I leveled up all my alts by doing the other regions and all of those quests.
I probably wouldn't even finish a War Within, if I'm honest, and I love the story in both Classic and Retail. Retail is a lot more obvious, of course, than Classic is, but I love living and breathing in this world in Azeroth, because it is, Retail, we absolutely blaze past it on flying mounts, and so we don't really get a chance to absorb it. When you actually sit back and you spend a dedicated amount of time with one character in a world that we've grown to know and love over the years, it really is special. One thing that I will comment on when playing Retail is, for me now, if I was going to re-roll other characters, there are so many different abilities in Retail that all do very different things without taking into account armor effects and trinkets. So for me, having to visually map what I'm pressing alongside what I'm already used to with my Ret Paladin would just be an absolute minefield. For me personally, I would say if you are someone who's playing a class, you've dabbled in a couple of different classes, but you don't really feel like you really fit in or really, understand what you're pressing and what you're doing, try just narrowing down one class. I promise you will get so much more fulfillment by just sitting and dedicating a bit of time to playing one class.
It's very common. Like I said, on stream, I do the community, we run Mythic Plus. You wouldn't believe the amount of people that are always on a new class in the same season. It's just mind-boggling. They expect you to carry them or to help them on every one of their alts. I mean, the list is so long, and it's very daunting. I like playing with good, solid people, which most of the people in the community are, but you never know if they're just getting going. I'm running everything from like 12s up to 14s right now, and I try to help everybody so this way they can get their crests, they can get their their Valor Stones. This is one of those things that we do in the community.
You might have a curve of boredom at some point that you just need to push through, but I promise you, it's so much more rewarding because retail has also led me into other things I wouldn't normally do in World of Warcraft, like PvP, for example, battlegrounds, war mode, open world PvP.
Man, we used to do a lot of PvP back when it was very popular, when the game first released. I mean, spent holidays just grinding out all the currency for your gear and everything like that. It was hot and heavy back in the day. Now, I haven't touched the battleground or an arena since BFA, when they made it kind of mandatory for your essence.
I'm being honest with you, as much as it's not a regular occurrence, it is some of the most fulfilling gameplay that I've ever experienced. And the benefit to me now, because I've spent so much time playing my Ret Paladin, I know what to press, I know what PvP abilities I've got, I know what, for example, if I press Control and 6, I know that I've got my damage shield, or I've got my blind, or, you just feel way more in control. And then when you do start to win those battles, it really does feel rewarding, because ultimately when you hop on a new class and get that to level 80 or whatever level, you do feel kind of hopeless. You feel like you're just kind of button mashing. Now let's throw this conversation back to Classic for a little while, because obviously we mentioned that the progress is a lot slower there, so it's a lot slower paced. What I will say is that finding the time that I'm spending on my druid, finding that now be put to really good use, and experiencing content that I've never ever experienced before in the game is infinitely more rewarding than constantly re-rolling other characters. I would say in this game, it might just be because I've ran the 1 to 30 content so often, but high level 30 and upward dungeons are infinitely more interesting. For example, I guess that the highlight here is the whole Scarlet Monastery kind of layout and dungeon design, starting off a graveyard into library, armory, so on and so forth. The enemies get infinitely more difficult. You start to see actual mechanics in boss fights, areas that you've never been to before. It just, your mind just kind of goes wild, and I'm just getting so much more enjoyment now that I've hit a period. I think I'm level 42 actually on my druid, and I'm just getting so much more enjoyment out of doing stuff that I've never done before, because ultimately if I had a re-rolled again, we would just be in the same old Elwyn Forest, Teldrassil, Westfall, just running that same cycle. Now, as I mentioned in Classic, I'm playing a Restoration Druid, which honestly I never ever would have seen myself playing and maining, but I'm having so much fun doing it. And I think the reason for that is when we get into that instanced dungeon content, rather than me just being a DPS where I can just watch something on another monitor, I'm actively engaged. I'm actively watching people. Have they got enough health? Are there enough buffs up? Have I put Mark of the Wild on? Have I put Thorns on the tank? Am I decursing enemies? Should I use an AoE heal? Should I use my AoE damage? There are so many things going on, and you feel like a vital part of the team, because as much as everyone has a role in a dungeon, I feel like with a healer, you are the last bastion basically. If you screw up, if you don't press your buttons correctly, then you are basically right on the verge of a wipe. With that being said, because you're such a vital component of the dungeon instant content, if you like, I find myself getting invited to infinitely more parties, and therefore
Healers and tanks will get invited way faster than any DPS ever. So keep that in mind. You just have to be able to learn it, do your best to be the best at it you can, and keep pushing even farther. And you'll have a fun time. You just have to master the storm too, of when you do mess up, that people are going to be a little toxic. If they're friends, they might even rib you or troll you a little bit. But when you're in a pickup group, it's going to be kind of harsh at times. So I won't lie.
I'm seeing more content and therefore having more enjoyment in the game. And I guess this is just a message to anyone that's struggling with, I guess, being an altaholic, right? And you're kind of hitting that plateau every single time. Just, I promise you, as hard as it is, pick a character, just play. Especially if you're on Classic. Classic is infinitely harder to constantly re-roll alternate characters to. And if you've not seen the, I guess, later part of the content in Classic, you're doing yourself a disservice. So pick a class, you'll get so much more enjoyment and gratification out of mastering a class than you would do just throwing yourself to different classes in the hopes to gear up and actually get to level 60, because that's still something I haven't done, because I've been re-rolling so many bloody characters. I still haven't got to level 60, but now is the time. No more rubbish. We're getting to level 60. Retail, I'm actually pushing into Mythic now. I'm approaching level 650 item level, and I'm having so much fun doing it. So yeah, there's the video. Just a bit of a conversational topic.
I like
you guys
it.
do enjoy,
I like it.
Leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you.
Let me give this guy a like, and let me subscribe to his channel. Why not? Let's do that, and let me subscribe. It's one of those things, man. I mean, it's you have to find your niche. You have to find what you want to do in the game. You want to try and find out, how am I going to enjoy this? You know, I'm paying $15 for it a month. You know, I'm going to be putting in some hours into this game. I have to level. I have to catch up if you're new, you know. So the enjoyment that you're going to find from the game is truly make friends. Try and make some friends. As I am a streamer, it's a little easier for me to make some of the friends, but come by stream, you know, I'll be your friend. And, you know, I stream on Twitch /Achilles _ 1970. And let's get into some content. I appreciate you guys. Thank you. Oh, by the way, I stream every Monday through Saturday, and Saturday though. So like I stream WoW Monday through Friday, but on Saturday is the day that we kind of lighten up. We do some karaoke. So if that seems like something you might also like and enjoy, come on in and give it a go.